Yeah, so you started with this thing you were just saying about like when you come out about it, and and then you initially there's a hesitation, and then you feel more safe, or you feel there's a higher purpose that you start sharing things which is gonna support other people. So how did this transition, or what was the vulnerability when you thought of sharing, and what were your fears and concerns in this time? And my question is so that those who are going through those things, and how can they see this journey, this transition that you made?
I think for me, it was, to be honest, I didn't have that many fears because the way I saw it is that the people who accept me for who I truly am, like that's great. It's a win-win situation. And the people who are not able to understand or do not accept, then at least I know. So then once they read this book, it's like, okay, if they're not able to comprehend it, or if they reject it, I don't have to take it personally. But having said that, I am quite sensitive, and if I do face rejection, personally and professionally, it does impact me, or how much ever I like it not to. But uh, yeah, I think I forgot the question.
Yeah, so I think what you were saying, I can reflect back what I heard you say. So what you were
Yeah.
saying is that because you had a support system, or because you had people who were accepting you. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I also feel that now, because in this day and age it's become that we think that if we have like a high number of followers, that means a lot. But honestly speaking, even if you have two or three really good friends that you can call in this day and age, who you can call up at any time and discuss, and it doesn't mean that you have to keep talking to them constantly and keep up that just to, like sustain the relationship. It's there forever, and you reach out and talk, and it's like it's you only spoke yesterday, and that's how it is. Like, I had a friend who visited me recently from who I met in Dresden, Germany. She stayed with me and my partner, and it was like not a single day had passed, and I was meeting her after 10 years. So
mhm.
I think that's a kind of bond I like to develop, and um it's it's very nice for me. I'm not a group person. I'd say I don't like to meet in very large groups. I feel that the sometimes the quality of the conversations tends to get diluted then. I like to have one-on-one connections with people. So even when I do meet with any friends, and these friends are maybe two or three, but even when I do meet them, it's like we have one-on-one conversations about life, and sometimes philosophy as well. So yeah.
So there was a circle of trust kind of, around you.
Absolutely. That circle of trust. Yes. I like that phrase a lot. Yeah, because without that trust, and also for me, I like three things that have worked for me also in my relationship, apart from trust, also has been um acceptance and respect. So that these three things has worked a lot for me in my relationship. But even with friendships, it's the same thing, I think.
What I'm again hearing from you, that it's not the number of people you have, it's the depth of the relationship that you have, and it could be one or two, and that kind of holds you in that moment for whoever you are and whatever you are dealing with, and that's that you are having that space.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also not taking to heart, often when I used to feel rejection, whether it was friends or family, back then it was, I used to take it to heart. But I often recall what my late uncle used to tell me. He said that, well, if you're not wanted in a space, then why would you want to humiliate yourself further and want to be there anyway, right? Like, if you know that you're not wanted there, then that's, at least that's good. Then wanting to be there in a space knowing that you're not wanted there and being rejected is like, why would you put yourself through that? So and that made me feel very lighter as well.
Yeah, so you had kind of mentors and people around you, and I think that made you, or that helped you navigate the thing. Because when I see some people around me who are dealing with such challenges and not having the right support system, whether it's the institutional or the community or the family, or relationships, some places you were finding it difficult, but there were some places which you were held. So I
Yeah.
think that helped you navigate things a lot, no?
Absolutely. And I think that also the sense of not giving up throughout. So whatever happens, having that hope and faith in the system and in the community and reaching out, because it's very easy to just go matlab, into your hole like that and not reach out and just close yourself off, But I feel like you need to really make that effort to reach out, and there's no shame in reaching out. In fact, I think that unfortunately for the people who don't reach out, the repercussions of that are even greater than you know.
You also mentioned this thing about, it's about, like, I don't know whether you use the word, one was personality and other is an illness. Did you use the word illness?
Yeah, I try not to use illness as
Condition?
often, but yeah,
A
I guess,
condition?
but definitely, like those are two very separate things, and I think what tends to often happen is sometimes the patient themselves kind of think that okay, I am this illness,
I'm
and
bad.
then yes,
I'm
exactly,
angry and I fight a lot, things like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But there's a clear distinction between the two, and often what tends to happen is if, for example, if I make a mistake, then I blame it also on the illness. Sometimes that happens. You make an excuse and say, okay, उसकी वजह से हो गया था, so it's okay. But that can also get a bit tricky because if you constantly do that, then you're giving yourself reasons to.
So then you stop taking responsibility of it or something. You just put everything outside you, and then it can become an
Exactly.
excuse for some some behavior that you may not want to cultivate, and they can become part of you.
Yeah, for
It's a
sure.
very tricky thing, also, not to not to blame and also not to overdo. So how are you figuring out this balance?
Uh, yeah, for me, I feel that the more things like take place in my life where I have to introspect myself, and I think that it will help a lot if we kind of just try to really know ourselves fully, and then also know the symptoms of whatever condition you are diagnosed with, or I mean in this case,
Study
if
about it, have knowledge about it. It's not like
yeah, it comes from a place of knowing, and then also when you come from a place of knowing, then you also have that agency about your condition instead of just leaving it to family members, friends, or institution, because that of very often happens where you're like ठीक है कोई बात नहीं हो जाएगा, but until and unless you don't take interest in your own life and in your own healing or recovery, then I guess no one else really will. I mean, you have to take that onus to be involved in it.
so kind of you have to be the steward ultimately. You have to lead
Absolutely, yeah,
the people can come with you,
yeah,
but you have to be the flag bearer of your own healing.
yeah,
Yeah. Did you write this line also? It takes a village to support a healing.
yeah.
In that
That
sense,
is, yeah.
I would say that that applies to this journey also. That you need so many dots and so many people who consciously, unconsciously come in your life and support you.
Yeah,
You mentioned that your at different point the support from the family, like for example, your father helped you with the right kind of psychiatrist, and your mom was there, or your uncle was there, and your brother was there. So why I'm asking this, because so many when people are going through such challenges, it's the family is lost. They can't even comprehend what's happening. They don't have the tools to understand. Can you share like how important it was to have that trust, and I mean, if you want to, yeah,
yeah.
anything.
Sure. I think it's important because to start off with, I think we were lucky that I was in Canada when I was diagnosed. So we were living in Edmonton, Alberta at that time, and they looking at my symptoms, they were suspecting drug abuse, but when they checked my blood, they suspected obviously something else, and they put me under observation. And coming to your point, I feel that at that time we got a lot of because of everything that they had observed me for many months, and we got a lot of feedback and like information and awareness about the condition. And I think it was I was fortunate that my father had reached out to psychiatrists and also a family from Dr. Rajesh Parekh at that time, and he was there from the very beginning. And so also I think it's very important to have a continuity of care, you
Mm.
know, when you're diagnosed. So you should have someone who, from the very beginning, I know it's difficult, but to kind of have that trust and
Who
faith from the very,
understands you, who
yeah.
understands you, who knows your history a little bit, and or whatever, who says how your the journey is moving, your healing is going on. And I think that's, you really nailed something really important, because it's not like a anytime anybody can come, especially from the family people, like close people,
Yeah.
if they consistently understand. And would that also mean that they need to, have their own growth and knowledge and learning, be open to that, because a lot of new things will come for learning.
Yeah, so I would say for family, it for example, I think each family member sometimes is only able to contribute so much, right? But I think it would be a great step forward if we as a community, and I'm talking about obviously globally here, but even in India specifically, if we can start from a point of acceptance and not having judgment, bias, and stigma towards someone who is diagnosed, I think that itself in itself is a very big thing. So the support can come from someone else. It doesn't have to be family. It could be, it's counselors, friends, but
Because
family accepting you means a lot. Yeah.
and there can be a lot of pain, because I've seen some people going through it when they family doesn't understand them, and they see there's a behavioral problem, or they're arrogant, or they get angry, ladti bahut hai types, whatever the story they could have, and it can be really painful for that person to not be seen in that moment, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for that, I mean, I feel that everyone in my family now and even then, when my uncle was around, they've contributed in their own way, and I'm grateful for that. And even the friendship that I had, I've had, believe it or not, more than three people, actually total four people, and who are just friends, visit me while I was in the rehab and in Toronto. And yeah, my one friend Sarah, who was just that time she was living with me in the student residence, and she looking out for me, much younger to me. I mean, she's the same age as my sister Zuni, and she just used to come and take care. She visited me in hospital, and I think that it's that I don't think someone needs to be your best friend to show that compassion. If they really want to show it, they will. And at the same time, friends will also be some can show negativity towards you. And so I
Mm.
don't think that being a friend has to be a requirement to kind of make that step and reach out. So yeah, I've had people who've not even that great friends, but they've showed up to be there for me and reach out and ask, is everything okay?
Mm. And that means a lot when that happens, in that moment when you're in the rehab and somebody comes to see you.
Yeah. Even there was one of my mother's ex-students, Siddhant, and I used to call them up so often. Like I had maybe just two, three numbers that I would keep calling from the hospital.
Mm.
Anytime I call, they would pick up and talk to me. So knowing that support system is there, it was
Mm.
very fortunate. I was very fortunate to have that.
So when I read the book, it looks like a survival kit, like why? Because it talks of when you see, I hear about nature, the walks, or
Yeah.
the music, or the dance, or the yoga, or meditation, hang out with kids, so it seems like a really cool recipe book for you know yeah,
Yeah.
and family, friends, community. So yeah.
Uh, yeah, I actually don't think that this book is limited to or should be limited to only people who are diagnosed with mental health, because I feel that if we can take this as a just just live life like this, like even people who are not diagnosed actually go through stuff, and if they apply these same things to their life, it can be life changing. It has been for me. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Like Gebhard Mate, his book is, The Myth of Normal,
Oh yes, I really
Yeah.
like him a lot.
So
Yeah.
like what is normal and what is not normal, I think that's
Yeah,
that's
that
really,
notion of normality,
yeah.
even my mother is trying to break that open in a PhD. So yeah, like who determines that, right? We are the ones who define that, and it can mean like different things for everybody.
My friend, with whom I did this workshop, Urmila, who is an unschooling mother, कि दुनिया में जितने बच्चे हैं और जितने adults हैं उतने ही curriculum चाहिए.
I agree with her though, because everyone is so unique and so individual, and I know that even when I was in Sayadri school, like I don't know if I mentioned this in my book, but they never used to have tests or exams, right, for
Yeah,
the
I
students.
know
Yeah,
that from my knowledge of Krishnamurti schools, yeah, but
exactly. So, and look at where all those students are now. Like my friends, they've reached like insane place. And I'm not saying that that's the aim of life to reach those places, but
mm,
they found their path on their own, and that was that unique path. And it was not to say that do this, do that, do it like this, do that.
mm,
They discovered themselves, and nothing was force fed to them.
mm,
Because I feel that anytime anything is force fed, there inevitably is some resistance to it.
mm.
I don't know why I feel this.
There is no flow then.
There's no flow, yes. So it feels a bit rigid, you know. So anytime anything was force fed to me, my first thing was okay, rebel against it. So
So, what made you name your book Finding Order in Disorder? If you want to share.
oh my God. Okay, all the credit goes to my father. So I have to tell you, so he came up with this genius title. But the thing is, when I wrote like only 2, 3 pages I'd written, and at that time I wanted to call it like um in pursuit of universal truths or something like really like heavy as that.
Hi-fi.
Yeah, right. क्योंकि I was like मैं तो philosophy करूंगी मैं but then at that time Anu mummy, my stepmother, was like, why don't you write something on bipolar? And so that I was like, okay, that I can do. But then once I thought, okay, maybe I can shift my thing from philosophy to bipolar, although I don't think there's much difference between the two. Because between you and me, I think people who have bipolar are pretty philosophical in their right. So then dad came up with this title, and that title in itself was so inspiring to me that I said, okay, I have to keep writing and keep doing something or the other. And the beauty of it was, as my life unfolded and all that chaos unfolded, there was more content to write. Because 10 years ago there was like, that's when I started writing, maybe 7, 8 years ago, I think 8 years ago. More than half of what is in the book had not even happened.
So basically, in a true sense, you are a content creator.
Well, yeah, I don't know about that, but I
Yeah.
was experimenting in my own life, and as it was unfolding, I was writing. So, in that with that same logic, I feel okay, now I'm 33 and this memoir is out, so why not keep writing? So I'm hopefully I can do a second book. I like this medium a lot. I feel like I can really it's like having a conversation with someone, but if I die tomorrow, that conversation can still continue, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed that in your book, what I got the idea that, when people talk of arts and, mental health, or, so they talk of dance, music and movement and things like, but so I think you mentioned also about writing,
Yeah.
so
No.
I find it really powerful. And I can, one thing I appreciate about the book is that the simplicity, with which you sometimes I used to wonder that, I mean, how much is it like your contribution and how much is the editor's contribution, but it was
Right.
really flowing in the most simple language that very profound things can be understood, so.
Yeah, so in terms of editors, I did have some contribution, but not in the sense of it was more of grammatical, and also, of course, there was contribution from others. I have given them acknowledgement in the gratitude and everything, but in terms of content, it I had written it myself, but it's always. Uh, I'd like to quote my father on this. It's always a team effort. So
Mm.
you never take all the credit.
Mm.
My editor Shantanu and also Anuja, who helped a lot with the book and making it more positive and palatable. Because at that time, also as I was writing the book, I was going through my ups and downs, and so then there would be a little bit of a negative thing to it and positive. But I realized if you want to reach out to more people,
Mm.
it has to be more inspiring and positive, right? Because why would anyone want to read something which is just all like
Mm.
cursing the whole universe?
I saw that also, that when you do talk of episodes, or not episodes, but do talk of relationships which went sour, and you experience a lot of pain in that, or you talk about how there's insensitivity towards mental health, or you talked about, people having inappropriate behavior, men, like reaching out in
You know, I
inappropriate.
have to tell you, so I'm so sorry, I'm interrupting you. I recall this thing when you mentioned relationships going so I had a image of there was one person I was seeing, and actually they met my doctor and they were trying to figure out with the doctor and based on research just the exact percentage of the bipolar gene which gets translated
Child.
into offspring,
Okay.
right? Because that according to that it would determine a lot of things, and it made me really laugh because I realized that someone who really accepts you and loves you for who you truly are doesn't give it. Why would
Damn.
they care about all this? Like this is like, anyway, I just thought I'll put it out there. So for anyone who wants to really like connect with someone,
Yeah.
please, it's never going to be a long list. You either love the person or you don't.
So no, so one that I was saying in that time was that, when you mentioned about, even relationships were going sour, I saw that there was a certain sense of detachment, and like seeing the other person still as a human being, and okay, it didn't work for me, and I want to have my boundaries, my care. So I saw that maturity. My question is that, so how did this? I mean, was it part of your nature in that moment? I mean, or you developed these skills, or maybe the therapy or something that made you see things with a different lens. Even things which were painful.
I So for me, I think that my whole like outlook to relationship, I think it changed when I found myself as an individual.
Mm.
So that I think was a turning point for me, and I think that actually happened at in my early 30s when I moved to Toronto and relocated to Toronto again, because then I was not living underneath my father's name or attached to that, but I had then finally carved out a personality for myself. So whether
Mm.
that meant being an early childhood educator, an
Mm.
artist, a dancer, a writer, a mental health advocate, these were all identities that I related to. And I'm not saying that it was bad to be underneath his
There was
name, but
support
I
or
think
being nurtured in that sense.
yeah. So and I think that's also what my father wanted for me. He wanted me to kind of fly and kind of have a life of my own, and for people to view me without that filter, because here when you walk down the road, nobody cares about all these things, and they take you for who you are, not for whom your parents are, right?
I actually, after reading your book, I came across two, three people who were struggling with issues around mental health. And actually, I already have decided at least five books I'm gonna gift, immediately around me I can see, and they can
Oh,
benefit. And when I'm
right.
reading this, come to me, oh, this, it's more like, okay, this, they can enjoy this, like, I know somebody who's going through a lot of challenge with their child, a lot of struggles and
Yeah.
episodes, and they're not able to still see that. Yeah, so the contribution, I think that your book, one of the big contribution would be that, it's like a it's like you are playing the role of a coach for parents actually, or for the supporting people. It's more for that.
Yeah.
It's maybe that could be your work, could be if you can, you know, maybe on your Instagram also, if you're interested. But something that I can see is a big gap that is there, that people who are caretakers and all, I mean, they don't have anybody to coach them.
True,
So-
absolutely.
And that's how your book, does a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing about the parents. Unfortunately, they also get influenced by the society, right? So
Mm.
I think these issues are, yes, they can be individual and they can be based within families, but they're systematic and systemic issues which have to be dealt with
Mm.
alongside individual relations and family relations.
Mm.
So I think if that as a whole can be like,
Seen, looked at.
yeah, but it's a whole, like it's not because क्या होता है ना, like सपोजिंग मेरी माँ मेरे साथ बात कर रही है, कल वो टीवी ऑन करती है, किसी किसी की कॉन्वर्सेशन देखती है, शी लाइक हाँ यही है, नो आइडिया where that information is coming from, how verified it is, and it could just be any random person saying anything. That's why it makes me very angry, especially when you have all these videos explaining bipolar disorder, which are making their rounds in
Mm.
India, especially.
Mm.
It's very I find them very impersonal, and it can be misleading sometimes because you have to remember that some of these symptoms also are can differ from individual to individual. So it's not as easy as it seems. So
Mm.
like it's not like ठीक है खांसी हो रही है तो थोड़ी coughing होगी, थोड़ी irritation होगी. Everyone has different kind of symptoms, and it manifests differently in everybody, depending on gender sometimes. I know of sometimes there's more what do you call it, anger sometimes in people, in males who have bipolar, but we have to keep these things in mind. We can't generalize and say कि ये ऐसा ही होगा. It would be nice for someone to say ऐसा भी हो सकता है. और अगर
Mm.
ये होगा, what is the solution for it? I mean, you just mentioned कि all these things happen, but yes, what do you do if this happens? So I think we need that we need to work more on the solution as opposed to just focusing on and talking about the problem.